So here we are at Black Spectrum Theater, 50 years later, called Clay. And Cedric Rose, you were with Onaje Allan Gumbs for 20 years as his manager, and you guys were friends for about 50 years.
That's correct.
And talk about Onaje Allan Gumbs' association with Black Spectrum Theater.
Sure. The association goes back many years, back into the early 90s, okay? Onaje had performed with several artists who had performed here at the theater. We had the likes of Stanley Turrentine and Angela Bofield and all of those folks. And we just kind of hit it off, and we invited him back to do a concert with us here at the theater. And then I got a phone call one day as we were building this thing called the St. Albans Jazz Festival. And he said, I said, well, we're going to keep you in mind for the event. He said, no, I'm calling you because there's something I want to invite you to. So I said, oh, okay. And he was performing with Kenny G.
Right.
And so he invited me out to see that concert because, Kenny G had asked him to play. And at that time he was talking about how a little controversial it was because Kenny G wasn't considered to be, a real jazz artist and stuff. But he said, no, I don't believe that at all. It was a wonderful concert. And, I really appreciate it and always cherish that, day he came out for that. And then I'd go see him perform, and he'd always, hit me up with a text or something or call and say, hey, I'm performing down at this place or that place, and I'd go check him out. Because this is a theater, I started thinking about it. I said, wow, it would be interesting if maybe he could do some music for something we're doing. So one was 5 guys named Mo.
Yeah.
And we had he put together a whole ensemble of some brilliant artists, and they went into a studio and did all the music for 5 guys named Mo. So then when I wrote this piece called The Healing Zone, it was, let's see what happens there. I mean, it was brilliant work. And then he said, well, I'm going to use one of these tunes on my album and stuff. I said, listen, go for it. It's wonderful work and do it. So over the years, he would perform at the St. Albans Jazz Festival a number of times. And then, of course, do one of the last plays that we did here that he wrote music for was called Timeless. So it was either that or we'd have him on the bill opening a show or some kind of special event. Yeah. So Onaje was just always here. What I always loved about Onaje is the idea that we would have these conversations beyond just, the business of music. We'd get into these deep conversations, okay? And it would be, it would be kind of like on the level of, Pharoah Sanders or something like that, but it would be an astral conversation, So, we just had deep conversations. Then, as I was just sharing, I found out that we had a friend in common that I didn't know, that he knew. He didn't know that I knew him. It was like, wait a minute. And then the whole music and arts thing came up. And then one of the things we shared was this thing about Charles Stepney and that first Minnie Riperton album that was done. And we talked about that a lot because that album was so deep and it was so rich. And Charles Stepney's career. So he really, I know there was something he wanted to do in that vein. I knew that. So who knows? He may have recorded something that we never even knew that he recorded that went down that avenue. But he was a brilliant artist, a warm, wonderful guy who just, always had good vibes to bring. And he always brought his A game to the stage. And, everybody here at the theater, we all loved the guy. And he just, he was truly about our folks too. He had a real love of black folk, and that was a thing that that was also there. You know, his politics were always in the right place, I think. So.
I do as well. I worked with him in the Freedom Party
Right.
campaign.
Okay. Okay.
Back in the day, so
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
into
Yeah.
public service,
Yes.
politics,
Yeah.
and our cultural environment.
Cultural environment, and he's the kind of guy who would say, I don't believe in what they talking about. I'm not playing for them. he had that kind of energy. Because some people will take a gig, I don't care who, whether. He had a politic with his thing that said, wait a minute, this is, you know, I'll play if the vibes are right and the head is right, but you couldn't twist him to do something that was against his, you know, his cultural makeup, you know?
Absolutely, and I bet Cedric could probably speak more to that. And I know also you had some questions for Carl, Cedric, and I want you to speak a little bit about how Onaje would choose the different venues he would perform in.
Oh, you could not.
Speak a little bit about
You couldn't get Onaje to do something that he didn't want to do. He would have to be part of it, totally. You know, immersed in it. I know Onaje for about 50 years. I worked with him for the last 20 years of his life, and I met Onaje through my brother Hamill Rose because they were writing some music together. Matter of fact, one of the songs they wrote together was one of the first songs that Onaje did with this first group called Natural Essence that Onaje was in. And this was maybe about 40 years ago, you know. And then I met Onaje a lot more when he was working with Phyllis Hyman, when Phyllis first came up to New York City. And they were working a lot at McKell's, at least when she was ready to put herself out there.
Absolutely.
After rehearsing with Onaje. And, you know, so I got to have a lot of deep conversations with Onaje, you know, and there was one situation I'll never forget. Albert Daly, another fantastic piano player, was playing at McKell's. Onaje walks in, and they got into this big brouhaha. They always talk music. So Albert said to Onaje, you think you bad, man? I'm playing at this club so-and-so. You come on down. So I went to the club that night. It was right across the street from Birdland. And Albert says to me, he ain't gonna show up. Next thing I know, here comes Onaje through the door. It was one of those nights that it was raining cats and dogs. And Albert goes up on the piano. It was Albert with Walter Booker Jr. and I believe Billy Hart. And Albert tore through the set. Then he comes down, he says, okay, Onaje, you can go on up. So Onaje goes up, and I'll never forget this. Onaje played this one song and took that song through so many variations. I mean, was incredible. Then when he got off the stage, he walked over to Albert and he gave Albert that like shoulder, like, you take that. And walked out the club.
Wow.
He didn't say nothing. And Albert turns to me and says, that's a bad man. You know. So yeah, I mean, Onaje can not just play, but something came out of him when he did play. You know. And of course, he played with a lot of famous people over the years. He loved singers. He loved singers, you know, from Phyllis Hyman to Angela Bofield to Diana Reeves to Oba Babatunde, and we can go on and on. That's one of the reasons why I started the Onaje Allan Gumbs and Sandra Gumbs Community Jazz Arts Foundation, to keep his music alive, you know, to do things for young people, encourage them to do, you know, and be involved in music, you know. And there's a lot of things Onaje was into, just not music, but it was theater, it was fine arts. It was incredible, the breadth of who this man was.
So I know you had some questions for Carl.
basically what I wanted to find out from Carl, and I think Carl already spoke about it, is the development of your relationship with Onaje, you know, here at the theater. And I know you've been at 50 years now.
Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah.
And I think Onaje passed 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I know you had invited the foundation this past summer to one of your festivals you were having, and you were going to honor Onaje, and you did honor him. You have a beautiful plaque in your wall of fame. And, you know, I was just more interested in how that relationship developed between you and Onaje Allan Gumbs.
Yeah, and you know, as I'm even looking back further, it started really with my brother Richard, who's a musician, and you know, and I believe that Onaje also had done some, because he could read and write music very well. So a lot of people would ask him to do their sheets for him, for them. Yeah. So I know Roy Ayers did that, Norman Connors did that, and so yeah, it goes back to those days, and even through Richard, because my brother Richard, you know, had worked with Phyllis Hyman. And in those early days, you know, this whole idea of McKell's and Russ Brown's and all those places where Phyllis started. So he was in that element. My brother's a little older than me, but, you know, I was always hanging, because I was always hanging with Roy Ayers and stuff. So it evolved around that time, you know? Exactly. You know, I can't give you a specific day, but I know it was, you know, in that time frame. So, I do recall something. We were riding somewhere, and Onaje, I was telling him, I said, you know, yeah, we're getting ready to do a show. We're doing something with Norman Connors. So, you know, this is one of these inside things. But he was saying, he said, man, you know, he said, man, Norman owes me big time. He owes me big time because we did a gig once, and, you know, we were all waiting to get paid, okay? And he said, you know, Norman said, look, everybody's at the hotel, look, everybody just have a good night's sleep and we'll take care of this in the morning, right? So Onaje said, everybody got up the next morning, came downstairs to, you know, meet up with Norman. They said, he checked out, you know, he checked out of here, you know, several hours ago. So he laughed about that. He said, yeah, you know, he said, but he loves them and stuff because he, you know, they had really done some wonderful music together and stuff. So, but he'd always share these, you know, different stories and stuff, you know, in the business. But yeah, that association, like I said, it just grew from him playing, and then, wow, well, let's, you know, we're a theater, maybe you can do some theatrical stuff. And then he'd do stuff down at the New Eurekan Poets Theater. He'd do stuff down there, and
give a shout out to Romney.
Of course, Romney, that's my man. And you know, and Phil, I'm trying to remember the brother's name. He's a musician too, drummer, I think.
Phil Young.
Phil Young, yeah, because Phil Young had a play, and it was really deep. And Onaje said, yeah, you got to check that out. And we tried to work this thing out with Phil, because he runs the flower shop, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. But we just never could get the timing right and stuff like that. But Onaje was one, yeah, you got to go down there and check that out. So we'd always connect, you know, always connect.
That was one of the beautiful things that I loved about Onaje, is that he was eclectic. That's the word.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and you didn't know what, you would assume, jazz musician, I'm into jazz. But Onaje can take you into some conversations.
That's right.
That would blow your mind.
That's right.
Onaje was a Buddhist, and he became a Buddhist through his affiliation with Buster Williams, you know. And his mind and his expansion of his mind was deep. Yeah. You know, he was very kind, and a lot of people would think he's quiet. I remember a time, Onaje, because we both lived in Co-op City. I remember a time that we were sitting on the bench outside of his house, and he was finishing his music. He says, let's go to the movies. So we went to see this movie named Cloverfields. Now, what we would do go see movies all the time, and then we would go have a coffee or something, and we would tear the movie apart. When I walked out the movie house, Onaje went into this uproar, this laugh that I'd never heard. I said, "What's wrong with you, man?" He says, "Cedric, I didn't understand a goddamn so-and-so about that movie." And then I had to laugh because I didn't understand a damn thing about the movie.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But you know, he was great company to keep. Matter of fact, the city council will be doing a street renaming for Onaje. The date is to be determined. I asked them, we look to do it in April, late April, early May. And it'll be up in front of his house on the Cruth Place in Co-op City. And I'm just so proud that we were able to get that done for Onaje. He really deserves it.
Yes, he does.
Then we'll be moving through Borough President Vanessa's office to have him inducted into the Bronx Hall of Fame. So he deserves that and a whole lot more. And that's one of the reasons I created a foundation, to have him placed in certain places that he needs to be and recognized. I mean, the national, he needs to be what is it called?
NEA master.
NEA Jazz Master. You know, they tell you a certain amount of years, but in keeping a foundation, keeping his name out there, not forgotten.
Yeah.
You know, we can maybe get these things achieved for him. And amazingly, I made it for him and his wife because she was a great supporter of Onaje.
Yes.
You know, and what had happened is when he passed, when she found out, they both were in the same nursing home, and she turned to the doctors and says she had diabetes, real bad. She says, "No more treatments." And just about a week later, she had passed. So I felt that we had to name the foundation for the two of them, for both of them.
Absolutely.
You know, because she was always there supporting him, encouraging him, you know, keeping his spirits up whenever he was down, you know, so we cannot leave her. And she was also a graphic artist herself, you know, so we cannot leave her out of the conversation.
Absolutely. You know, Carl and Cedric, you know, the very first time I saw Onaje was back in the early part of 1978. And, you know, Dexter Gordon had come back from Europe after 13 years in Copenhagen. And they all signed with Columbia Records. And then Woody Shaw with Carter Jefferson and a couple other musicians with Onaje Allan Gumbs on the piano.
Right.
And he, at that time, he was a young guy, and he, with all these older guys, he was the musical director.
Yeah.
And wrote a lot of the songs, you know, and I just thought, you know, he was a guy around my age. He was just maybe a year or two older. But it was just so amazing for me to see this young guy with all of these older cats and just really just honing his skills. And I just thought that was amazing.
Yeah, even before Woody Shaw, he was with Kenny Burrell.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You know, right out of high school, you know, early part of his, well, really when he finished, as soon as he finished college, Kenny called him up and he was with the Kenny Burrell trio, you know, and then we can go Grady Tate. He recorded with Oba Babatunde, Dinah Reeves, Will Downing, and Lisa Fisher, Dee Dee Bridgewater. The names go on and on and on. Carmen Lundy, you know, and you know, it wasn't. He was a jazz artist, but he could do some R&B stuff that would blow your mind.
Right.
You know, and then in his latter years, he came back to doing jazz. That's why one of his albums called Return to Form was his return to the form that he loves the most, which was jazz.
Yeah, and I saw him many times at BAM. He would do free concerts.
Yeah.
And then, of course, at the New Eurekan Cafe, where he played tremendously.
Yeah.
So what are some of your fondest memories of Onaje, Cedric?
Well, We did a lot of traveling together. I remember I had sent him down to Anguilla, which he's from Anguilla.
Yeah.
And he was so happy to go back home to the Anguilla Jazz Festival, and then all the family and relatives, you know. Then the concerts that we did 2 concerts through at BAM, and then we did his last final concert, which all of his family was able to come through thanks to the Jazz Foundation of America.
Yeah.
At Aaron Davis Hall, you know, and that was the real last concert that he did with a big ensemble. I mean, who was in that? Oba, no, not Oba. What's his name? From the Last Poets.
Felipe, not Felipe.
No, not Felipe. Not Felipe.
Abby O'Doon,
but
yeah,
Filippo
yeah,
did.
yeah.
Felipe and Abby did the BAM concerts.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, with several other artists, and the musicians that Onaje kept around him was just superb, the best, very best. One of the things I liked that we did a concert at Shutter's Cafe, and Hotep Adris Galata came in from South Africa because he didn't like what was going on in New York, so he went back to South Africa. He is from South Africa. And he came back, and we did a concert, just Onaje, him, Satima, the wife of Dollar Brand, and a few other artists. And we never released the record. You know, I have it in my house. But the 2 of them, if you heard 2 superb, and then he's playing South African jazz and not just American jazz. It just was incredible. Yeah. And hopefully hopefully I can get it mastered and we can release that through the foundation to support the foundation.
You know, that's a great segue into my next question, Cedric. Are there any other recordings that, you know, we can look forward to? You know, I'm a volunteer at the John Coltrane home on Long Island, and every year it seems like new music resurfaces. Like last year, the John Coltrane Live in Seattle, and I was just wondering with Onaje, do you have anything like on tape or?
I have a full 2-set recording of the concert we did at Shutters. That was recorded by James Nichols, who was one of the top engineers in the business. You know, so there's that, and then there's one of recording called Thank You by, I can't remember her name. She's now in Africa, in Ghana. And I don't want to call her name to call the wrong. I know her last name was Blackman, but I don't want. And Thank You, I just found out Onaje started to record with her. She does spoken word, but he wanted to record a choral part to it. Now I have the fellow at Cortland, his name is Cortland, Cleveland Cortland. He has the material, and we plan to look at that and maybe bring a chorus in and finish the recording. So he has a lot of stuff that is unrecorded and unreleased. You know, so
we can look for some.
We can look for, yes.
Onaje Allen material to come out in the near future.
Hopefully within the next year.
That's wonderful to know.
You know.
And how can people reach you, Cedric, regarding the Onaje Allen Gumbs?
They can go on the foundation, which I said, Onaje Jazz Arts, all one word, onajejazzarts.org, and pull up the website. All the information will be there. And my phone number is there. A way to contact the foundation is there.
Call Clay, Black Spectrum Theater, Cedric Rose, Onaje Allen Gumbs Foundation. It's so good to talk to both of you.
Yes.
And Carl, I'm looking to see some of your work coming forward.
Sure.
Cedric, I'm looking forward to working with you to going forward with a lot of the work in the Onaje Allan Gumbs Foundation, and I want to say to both of you, thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.
Time is on my side today. Feels like I'm gonna do something new. Manifesting lessons and power moves. Negative people stay away. No, just wanna get back simply what it gives. And I'm focused on my positive.